What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and you've probably heard it making its way around on the internet, so I thought I would just get out and make a video on this, and this is what will likely be called, at least for this version of 2024 D&D, the most broken spell, the craziest damage, blah, blah, blah. Lots of channels do this kind of stuff, but I covered it on a live stream the other night, but I figured I'd talk about it here. So the spell in question here, that is the one that's kind of triggering everybody to go nuts on this, is called Conjure Minor Elementals. Now, some of you have played Baldur's Gate 3 or remember the old 2024 or 2014 version may remember this as a thing that basically lets you summon mephits. Now, if you recall, stuff they talked about early in the Unearthed Arcana process is they are basically deprecating the original version of all the conjure spells in favor of summon spells, the summon spells from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything that use a stat block, right? But luckily for us, we have conjure minor elementals here in the Unearthed Arcana from Unearthed Arcana 8 is basically exactly what we're going to see in the final version here that I have in the book in front of me. So what you can see on the right-hand side of your screen, I'm just going to do a quick self-comparison. The only thing that's different really in this spell is a couple of the way they worded some things, right? So here it says in the Unearthed Arcana, self 15-foot radius. In the final version, it just says self. And the difference is they hadn't determined emanation as and I'll do a separate video on what an emanation is, but essentially something that travels with you aura-wise, that's an emanation. So it basically says here, you conjure spirits from the elemental planes that flit around you in a 15-foot emanation for the duration, as opposed to, listing it here. But basically what it comes down to is, and the damage type change. It says originally here, bludgeoning, cold, fire, or lightning in the Unearthed Arcana. It is now acid, cold, fire, or lightning in the final version. And also, if you look down at the higher levels, the range of the difficult terrain increases by 5 feet. That has since been removed. It's if you're inside the emanation, it's difficult terrain. That doesn't shift. But the upscaling of damage does. So basically what we're getting at here is until the spell ends, any attack you make deals an extra 2d8 damage when you hit a creature within 15 feet. Right? And then, again, the final version says within the emanation. So essentially, again, for a 4th level spell usable by the druid and the wizard, if you hit anybody with multiple attacks while they're within that 15-foot radius around you, they're going to take an extra 2d8. Now, there is a slight difference here. Basically, what's written in the final product on the book says the damage increases by 2d8 for each spell slot above 4. In the Unearthed Arcana, it said using a spell slot of 5th level or higher, the damage increases by 2d8. So just a clarifying language. But essentially, if we upcast this, we're going to be dealing additional d8's worth of damage for any attack that we make. Now, the reason I bring that up is because everybody's saying that this is the most broken thing because you could do 500 points of damage in a turn. And technically, it's 2 turns. And I'll explain to you why. So the big one is everybody's suggesting you cast Conjure Minor Elementals, as we just saw, with your 9th level spell slot. So first of all, you have to be at minimum 17th level for this to even happen. So that's step 1, is you're casting Conjure Minor Elementals out of your 9th level spell slot. And as we saw, you're going to deal additional d8's worth of damage for each spell slot above 4th level. So if it's 2 for 4th level and 4 for 5th level and so on, it looks like we get ourselves to, if my math is correct here, 12 total d8s, or maybe it's even more than that. So let's see. It's 2, I'll start like this. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yeah. 12 d8s, but that's 12 d8s per attack. So each attack that you would make against any creature within 15 feet of you is going to take an extra 12 d8 damage, which is an absurd amount of damage, but again, you are spending your 9th level slot. Now, here's the thing. That is an action to cast, and it is concentration. So one, well, you know what? Let's do the big boom for you to see it, and then we'll talk about why it's not as crazy as people actually are making it out to be. So first of all, you have to get it up and out as an action, casting with a 9th level slot, which is again 17th level, and is only on the druid and wizard list, because a lot of people will throw things out there like, well, quicken spell. And technically that's an option, but you don't normally have this on the sorcerer list. Now, if you are using older source books and pull in Meta Magic Adept, then there may be some other shenanigans you can do there. But the big boom that everybody's talking about is a 2-turn. So starts off with turn 1, conjure minor elementals as a 9th level spell. Then if you make it all the way around to your second turn, it's casting Scorching Ray out of an 8th level slot, which Scorching Ray starts at 3 rays and then makes its way up by adding additional rays as you level up, getting you to, what is that, 9 total rays. So what this means is if you have Conjure Minor Elementals up, and mind you, you are within 15 feet of an enemy and can fire off all 9 Scorching Rays and hit them with all 9 Scorching Rays, you will deal ridiculous damage in that all 9 rays would hit, dealing 18d6 damage for each of the Scorching Rays, fire damage, mind you. And then it would deal 108 additional d8s of your choice of acid, cold, fire, or lightning damage. So that's a pretty sizable amount of damage. So let's go ahead and do this, because that's what everybody wants to see. So we'll go here. I've got it queued up, 18d6 plus 108 d8. So we'll go ahead and hit roll, and you'll see all the dice fly across the screen. And this will total to some amount. 526 damage is what I rolled. Now, again, that's probably a little ridiculous. And if we were to pull up the dice log, you could see, we can't even actually see here what we rolled. But 526 damage is how much we did. So that is what we rolled. Now, there's ways to increase that, right? If we had something like Elemental Adept, let's say, we would re-roll, or all of our 1s that we rolled would become 2s, assuming we did all of the same type of damage. If we were a tiefling and had Flames of Phlegethos, we could re-roll any 1s. If we were something like an evocation wizard or what have you, we could have added 5 to that. So you could see you could get 500 seems to be plus 500 points of damage is around where you seem to hit. I've done this a couple of times. That seems to be the number that we hit. 500 plus. Now, that's all well and good, but it is you blowing your 9th level slot and your 8th level slot, and you have to make it all the way around to the second turn. This instance, again, the 18d6 is fire damage. It has to be in this instance because it's Scorching Ray. Now, again, if you find yourself in such a situation that you have sorcery points where you can change the damage to a different type, that bodes very well for you. And then choosing acid, cold, fire, or lightning for the additional d8s is also very powerful, because then you could maybe switch yourself up to get to something that maybe isn't resisted. Acid and lightning are less resisted types than, say, cold or fire. But you also, like I said, have to get to the second turn, because you have to cast Conjure Minor Elementals and concentrate on it for it's up to 10 minutes. So this does have, casting it out of that high level slot does have its benefits, because it will last over multiple turns, presuming you don't lose concentration. But it being something that has a duration, this can be affected by Dispel Magic, where it just goes away. This could be just knocked out of you damage-wise if someone hits you with a big enough hit. You do also have to find yourself within 15 feet of that enemy for the entire 2 turns for this to work. Or at least on the turn when you cast that, it lasts for 15 or for 10 minutes, and then on your turn, move to within 15 feet of them to activate it. So you don't have to stay within 15 feet. But when you go to cast your Scorching Ray to get off the big damage, you have to get yourself within 15 feet. And presumably this is going to be something you're going to want to do, because everybody's talking about the big number. You're going to want to dump this all onto one very high health enemy, which pretty much almost guarantees in D&D 5e terms, you will kill whatever it is. I don't know if there's any creature in 5e as it stands right now that has 500 plus hit points. There are some I think that have in the 500 range, maybe like Tiamat or in some of like the avatars of the gods and stuff. But realistically, being able to churn out 500 points of damage on a single target, you very likely will kill that, whatever it might be, as long as it doesn't have immunity. Now, again, you could spread that damage out, right? That's 2d6 plus 12d8 to whoever you hit with the rays. But then again, they also all need to be within that 15-foot emanation for that to work. There's also guaranteeing you're going to hit all of these. Now, maybe you have some means of generating advantage for yourself so that you can more or less guarantee a hit. And something we didn't even discuss is that because these are all technically attack rolls, you can crit on these. So potentially one of those, you could double the damage and then really increase the overall damage output overall. So it's definitely fun to speculate about something like this and to just see how much crazy damage one could actually do. But I think it actually happening in play like that is pretty unlikely. Now, something to consider is there is reasonable amounts of damage you could do by not doing this out of like crazy high level slots like we just talked about, right? You get Conjure Woodland Beings, or sorry, not Conjure Woodland Beings, Conjure Minor Elementals, rather. It's a 4th level spell. So you're going to have access to this at level 7 as your Druid or Wizard. So, okay. If you say a Wizard, you have this at level 7, and then you could cast another level 4 Scorching Ray. That's it's not as crazy damage, but it's still sizable amounts, right? 2d8, so that's every Scorching Ray you're casting is going to deal 2d6 plus 2d8. That's not a small amount of damage for, a combo of a couple of spells. Now, again, maybe you find yourself at level 11, you have access to 6 level spells, so you could see there's definitely... The spell is very good. I think that's what I'm ultimately trying to say. While the big numbers you can pull off are pretty ridiculous, and the scenario notwithstanding, there are means to do pretty solid damage with this spell overall. Do I think it's broken? I don't think so. It is, again, it is a concentration spell, so you're more or less going to lock your concentration on this spell to do this going forward. It is nice to see it on a druid and a wizard because you're going to have access to multiple attacking spells or maybe even physical attacks, depending on if you're like a blade singer or something. This could be something pretty useful for you, but you're probably going to spend your concentration on haste if you're a blade singer. But either way, pretty cool spell overall. I don't think it's game-breakingly crazy, but it does allow you to do some pretty ridiculous amounts of damage. And again, maybe with something like scrolls or other things, there are ways for you to do multiple kind of leveled spells in a turn, depending on how things go. We'll talk about that in a future video because it's pretty interesting the way the wording is written. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think you could definitely churn out some solid damage, especially if you do this in like the middling levels. And again, it could be useful for other classes, attacking classes. It is a self spell, so this is not something like you're going to be able to put this on your fighter so then they could just go to town with Action Surge. I think that's part of the reason why this is a self kind of buffing spell. But if you have a means to get access to this as one of those classes, whether through a multi-class or otherwise, you could probably do some pretty crazy stuff. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. It's, again, like I said, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people making shorts content on this and about how it's the crazy, most overpowered, broken spell in the game. I don't think that's the case. I think it's pretty cool and like the synergies you can do, but also consider, it is when until the spell ends, any attack you make. When you hit a creature in the emanation. So, like, it doesn't actually... So, interestingly enough, even if the creature you're hitting was immune to Scorching Ray, the extra damage would still apply, because it says when you hit a creature in the emanation. So, you just have to hit them. You don't actually have to hit and deal damage. The extra damage rider happens just on the hit. So, again, in theory, you could use Scorching Ray to just provide a whole bunch of hits, And then, even if you were to do that one we talked about with the 8th and ninth level spell, you could say, like, this creature's immune to fire, but, it'll take regular damage from acid. None of the scorching ray damage will apply, but if all of them hit, you'll still hit them with 108 d8 acid damage. So I definitely like it. I think it has some benefits. I think it'll be interesting to see, maybe popping this on like a moon druid and then transforming and using this to just rack up extra damage on your melee hits as in a wild shaped druid. I don't know. I'm sure there's other crazy combinations that you guys have already thought of just from hearing what goes on in this video, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. So anyway, I'll see you all next time.